Hello and welcome back to my channel. Yeah, it's been a couple weeks since my last video. So for those of you who don't know, I've just moved to Canada. I've been here 4 weeks so far, and I thought, what better way to I realised that I'd let the kettle boil ages ago for my tea, and I was like, oh, the water's going to be cold now. So that was probably the most stereotypically British thing I could have done. But now I have my tea, so I'm happy. I thought, what better way to bring back the old YouTube videos than to do a video about the application process for the visa that I came here for. So, the program as a whole is called the IEC program, and it stands for International Experience Canada. What it is it's a way for Canada to bring youth in to the country to try out working here on a temporary basis. There are various different visas within the IEC program itself. For example, there's the young professional one, there's the internship one. The one I'm going to be talking about is the one that I'm on, which is the working holiday visa, which from most countries you can get either 1 or 2 year versions of this, depending on which country you're from. The working holiday visa is useful if you don't really know what you want to come out here for, so you don't have a specific employment lined up. If you think you want to work for more than one employer, or you want to move around, you want to work more than one place, then the working holiday permit is going to be for you. Whereas if you have a contracted employment with someone, that would be maybe the young professional ones. I don't know, I'm not an expert on that one, so that's why we're just going to talk about the working holiday one. Okay, so I'm going to break this video down into sections, but I'll just give a brief overview of how the process works, and then we'll go into more depth of it. So there's mainly 3/4 parts of this process. So the first step to this process is finding out whether you're eligible, creating your profile, and entering what is known as the pool. The pool is essentially like your country's holding pen. Each country that Canada allows people to have these visas for has its own individual pool, and it's where all the applicants sit until Canada decides, okay, you can apply now. It's like a lottery-based system, so there is not really a way to jump this part. You just have to wait your turn. For some countries, it's a lot easier to breeze through the pool than it is others. It just depends how many visas Canada allows your country, pretty much. Then once you've been invited to apply, you have 10 days to accept the invitation, then a further 20 days to actually submit your application, which you'll need a certain amount of documents for and supporting things. Then once you submit your application, they can take about 8 weeks to process it. It usually is quicker than that. Mine was, I think, only about 4 weeks. And then once you've been approved, hopefully you've been approved, then you have 1 year from that date to then move to Canada. Okay, the number one most important thing you need to make sure you have before you start this process is a valid passport. And by valid, I don't mean like, oh, you've got like 2 years left on it. No, I'd say you need at least 4 years left on your passport, because the process can take a while. From me applying to me getting approved only took 3 months, but it can take from you entering the pool up until you finally getting approved, it could be about a year. And then once you've been approved, you've got then a further year to get to the country. So that's 2 years essentially of your expiry date getting closer and closer and closer. And once you get to the border of Canada, if you've got a 2-year visa, if you've been granted a 2-year visa, say, but you only have 18 months left on your passport, they can only grant you the time that's left on your passport, and there is no way of extending that. So just make sure that your passport is in date. Okay, so onto the process itself. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go to the IEC website and check your eligibility. You do that by going to the link that I've got below here, and you just fill in a really simple form, and they will tell you whether you are eligible or not. If you are, great. You create a free IEC profile, answer a few questions, and if you get a positive result, then they will allow you to complete your profile, and they will tell you which pool is open to you. Once you've entered the pool, then it's waiting time then. At this point, you have not applied for your work permit, okay? Just need to make sure that clear. You have not now applied for your work permit. You are in the holding pen at the minute. And depending which country you're from will depend on how long you are in this holding pen. Canada gives a different number of visas out to different countries. So for example, the UK, they will reciprocate essentially how many visas the UK will offer Canada. Canada will then turn around and say, okay, well then we'll only offer your citizens this amount of visas. So that pool can be pretty crowded at times. Whereas if you're from Australia, Australia allows unlimited amount of Canadians to go and work in their country. So in return, Canada lets unlimited Australians in the country. So as soon as you enter that pool,
chilling in
pretty
the
sparse.
tub, 5 feet apart because they're not gay.
And you basically get invited to apply straight away if you're from Australia. If you're from the UK, who knows? There is a part of the website that you can check before you apply to see how busy the pool is, and it will tell you your chance of receiving an invite. When I did it, it told me that my chance of getting an invite was very unlikely, but then they surprise released 5,000 new invitations in the middle of the year, so I got invited. So don't always trust that bit. Now, while you're in the pool, there are a certain number of things that you can do to help yourself when you get invited to apply. The first major thing that you can do is you can apply for your police certificates. That is something that you're going to need in your application, and you may need it from more than one country. So you will definitely need it from your home country. On the IEC website, it tells you exactly how to apply for your police check from your country. If you're from the UK, it is not the same as a DBS/CRB thing that you will have. It's called an ACRO, I think, from the UK. So it's a totally different police check. So if you have a DBS, it's not that. If you have lived in another country for more than 6 months collectively, then you will need a police check from that country. So what that means is if you have lived there for 6 months, it doesn't have to be at one time. So for example, I worked on something called Camp America, which is where you go and work at summer camp for 3 months of the year. But because I did that for numerous years, I had lived in America for more than 6 months collectively. So I had to apply for a police check from the FBI. And obviously that was gonna take a while. So I applied for that as soon as I entered the pool because I knew that I'd have to send my fingerprints off and ship that to America for them to finally, figure out whether I'd committed any crimes, to send it back and say no live trace or whatever. And that took quite a while. Once you get the police check though, it's valid for, I'm pretty sure, that year. So if you get it as soon as you enter the pool, it will be fine by the time your invite to apply comes in. What you also need is a CV. Most people have them. If you're over 18, I'd like to think that you have a CV, but if not, there are loads of websites where you can build CVs for them. I would just get someone that's pretty high up in employment by you, someone that you trust, to just read over your CV, see if it sounds weird or see if it sounds great. Just have that, check that off your list. Boom, done. What you'll also need is a digital photo of yourself, passport style. So because I had just applied for my new passport, I used that exact same picture that's in my passport because I took it myself, and I used that for my application. So you should do the same. Or if not, there are guides online as to how to do it. It's just basically make sure you've got a plain background, there's no shadow in the background, and you're not wearing glasses or something, I don't know. It's on the website. Check that bit out. So now we're going to assume you've been invited to apply. Well done you. So from this point, you will get an email saying that you've got a message in your inbox on your IEC profile. You go and check that and it will say your invitation to apply. Once you open this, you have 10 days to accept it. Okay? I opened it and I did not realize that by scrolling to the bottom and clicking start application meant that I had accepted it. I honestly thought the button was going to say accept invitation, but it didn't. It said start application. So I instantly wiped 10 days off my 30-day slate. Cool. Once you accept it, then you have 20 days to fill out your application, get all the supporting documents you need, and send that off. So along with the things that I've just mentioned, which is your CV, your police checks, the passport style photo, what you will also need is make sure you have your passport, obviously. They will send you a family information form that you need to fill out with details of your parents, your spouse, your children, any of those that apply to you. And then you will also need to fill out the rest of the application. Some of the application I found that it repeated itself in bits and I was like, why am I doing this here and then this here again? Just go with it. It's fine. Depending on what job or thing you've said you may end up doing in Canada, they may ask you for a medical exam. If they don't, That's fine, don't worry about it. There are a few professions that you will need a medical exam in. Those are if you're planning to work in the science field, the health field, or in primary and secondary education. Within the application itself, there is a supporting document file that you can upload, and it can be as big as you want. You just have to make sure it's all in one Word document or PDF document. So, for example, it had a section where you had to enter all previous work visas you'd had for any country, but all mine were on my previous passport. So I was a bit like, I don't know whether I'm supposed to upload these or not. So I just uploaded scanned pages of my old passport with my US work visas in. And I just uploaded that in my supporting documents one. So if there's anything you're panicking about when you apply, just make sure it's in the supporting documents. Once you've done all this stuff, then you'll need to pay your fees. The IEC fee itself is, I think, 153 Canadian dollars, which is around 90 something pounds. And then if you are specifically applying for the working holiday one, I'm pretty sure it's an extra $100. As well as that, you need to pay for your biometrics fee. Your biometrics is basically you go to a place and you get your fingerprints taken and your eyes scanned. So you pay for your biometrics fee and you send your application off within, I'm pretty sure mine came within a day, but you will pretty much instantly get a message to ask you to get your biometrics. You don't need to do it before you apply, you basically get it as soon as you apply, and it says you need to make sure you book your appointment within 30 days of this. It doesn't mean your appointment needs to be within 30 days, it just means you need to have booked it within 30 days. On the website, it will tell you where the nearest biometric centre is. For me being in the UK, obviously the biometric centre was going to be in London, because where else? So you need to book that in. It will tell you exactly how to do that in the message that you get through on the website. If I remember rightly, what you need to take to your biometrics appointment is your passport and the message you get through with your biometrics letter. You need to take that with you because I'm pretty sure it has a barcode that they need to scan. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, it'll tell you on the website anyway. Okay, so now let's say all of that is done, you have now officially applied for your work permit. What you haven't done though is been approved, so do not rush into anything. The processing can take up to 8 weeks, they say, that's the maximum processing time. But again, if you go on the website, it will tell you what the expected processing time is. Do not, at this point, do anything rash. Don't buy a plane ticket, don't get your insurance, don't get accommodation, don't cancel anything back home, because you don't know when you're going to get approved, and you also don't know if you're going to get approved. There are only really a couple of things that will happen once you've applied. It'll either be sent back because it's incomplete, which you will then have to complete and resubmit it, or it'll get approved, or you may be asked to go for an interview at the Canadian Embassy in your country. But we're just going to focus on if you got approved. So, well done! You have officially been approved for your Canadian working holiday visa, or work permit, whatever one you've got. Now from this point, you have exactly 1 year from this date to enter the country. And that's it, that's your only chance, okay? If you let that year run out, you cannot reapply for this visa. So once it's happened, that's it, you need to make the most of it. So now is the time that you can start buying plane tickets, buying everything, get your insurance, etc., etc. Because at the Canadian border, there are numerous things that you will need to make sure you have with you to be allowed into the country. The first and most important thing you need is your passport, obviously. The second thing you will need is your port of entry letter. That is the one thing that you will receive through on your IEC profile that essentially tells you that you have been approved. Okay? That itself is not the visa. You've just been approved for it. Okay? You will not get the physical visa until you get to the port. Okay? So you get your port of entry letter. You need that, your passport. You will also need to make sure you have insurance. I got mine with True Traveller. There are numerous Facebook groups that you can check out, and you can ask as many questions as you want. But essentially the top 2 insurers that people seem to be going with are either True Traveller or Nomads. I would just go with one of those just because you don't want to be stuck with some dodgy insurer that you don't know whether they're going to pay out. The beautiful thing about True Traveller is that they allow you unlimited home trips, so I could go home for like 6 months and return here and I would still be insured. A lot of insurers, your insurance will become void once you return home. So say you're going home for, I don't know, Christmas or whatever, it will become void. So just make sure you check all the little details within your insurance before you get it. What you will also need at the port is a proof of funds document. So you need to make sure that when you get to the border, you have proof of 2,500 Canadian dollars in a bank account, as well as either a return plane ticket or enough money to cover a return ticket. They say that they only accept bank statements that have been printed in the last 7 days. When I got to the border, and when numerous other people got to the border that I've spoken to, they didn't check their proof of funds, but just make sure you have it. I don't get a bank statement printed that often. My bank statement was, I think, about a month old when I got to the border, but I'd also like screenshotted my mobile banking app just to like link the two together, just in case they had to be like, oh look, this is money a month ago and it's not that different now, kind of. If, like I mentioned earlier, you wanted to work in the science, health or teaching field, you will need to have a medical exam, and you will need to make sure that you have this with you at the border. Because what will happen naturally at the border is you will get a work permit that is restricted. What that means is that you have medical restrictions on it, so you will not be allowed to work in those fields. They will mention this to you at the border. They will explain every part of this visa you're about to get, and they will say that you are restricted from this. All you need to say in that instance is, oh no, I got a medical, here's my proof of this medical, and then they will lift those restrictions. You need to make sure that you do that at the border, because if you don't, it can be a massive hassle to get it done from the other end once your permit has already been issued, to then lift those restrictions afterwards. So just make sure that when you're at the border that you double check that. When it comes to your insurance, make sure that you get the cover for the whole 2 years or the entire length of the visa that you've got, okay? Because my visa was 2 years, but if I would have only got insurance for 1 year, they will only grant you a 1-year visa because you cannot extend your visa. So make sure that your insurance is for the full term of the visa, and make sure that your passport's in date, because if they grant you a shorter term visa, you cannot extend it. So just make sure that it's in date. As part of all these Facebook groups that I'm with and all these questions that I see constantly on there, when I was in the application process and when I was almost going over, just make sure that you take over with you any of the supporting documents you've needed at any point throughout the process. So for me, I made sure I took my police certificates with me, I made sure I had my CV with me, just in case anything gets flagged up, and then you can just say right there and then, oh here, I've got that with me. But hopefully everything's gone well and you will just be issued your work permit straight away. There are a couple of things that you will need to check at the booth with the officer just before you leave, just to make sure everything is as it should be. So the first thing you need to make sure is the expiration date on the visa is when you expect it to be, which should be ideally 2 years after the day of entry. You need to make sure that if you have had a medical, it's an open work permit. And you just need to make sure that everything is spelled right. But other than that, everything should be great, and you'll be on your way to Canada and a new life with this new visa, new year, new you, new country, new stuff. Yeah. So I hope this video has been slightly useful in some way, and I hope that I haven't missed anything too important, but who knows? I'll probably come to the editing part and realise that I've missed a massive chunk out, but we'll see. I may end up doing another video with my first few weeks in Canada, just setting things up like my SIN number, etc, etc. I'll see what I feel like. I'll see how well this video is received. But thank you so much for watching. Oh my god, you've made it to the end of this video. You must really be thinking about this. Well done you. Do it. It's great, why not? But thank you so much. Make sure you like and subscribe, and yeah. Bye.